Welcome to our Sheffield City Region IEP networking event. Hopefully you've all got a copy of the agenda, found one on your seat. They're hidden in your packs there. We've got a great lineup today. I'm sure you already know that. That's what enticed you all to come along. So in terms of that agenda then, we've got some great speakers. We're going to have a bit of a round table, a bit of a group discussion. There's a bit of a surprise one. It's going to be facilitated by Mark Powell. I say surprise because I have no idea what those topics are going to be. Left them in his capable hands, so that's rather exciting. And then there's going to be ample time for networking at the end. So please make use of that time, and some great refreshments and some food put on by the Real Junk Food Cafe, actually. Who and their purpose is to keep food out of the bins and really environmentally driven. So that's a great charity, and I know they're associated with Zest. So please join us afterwards. That's a bit of overview of the agenda, I think. My name is Stewart Holdsworth, and I suppose I'm here today wearing two hats. The first being that of my employer, Seetec, who are themselves a long-standing provider in the employability sector. Do all sorts of employability services across that sort of broad spectrum, and I will sort of talk a bit more about who they are and what we do in a moment. But the other hat is I'm here in my capacity as a board member of the IEP, and that's great news for me because I'm really passionate about what the IEP stands for, what it does for our sector, and I won't steal any of your thunder, Scott. But more than that, I'm really passionate about these events that IEP put on, and there's a series of them up and down the country. And I'm really passionate about these events because for me they're at the core of what the IEP is all about. And that's about bringing us together within the sector, within the wider sector, to develop relationships, build connections, collaborate around thought and action. Because all of us here, we work in this great thing, the employability sector, whether it's independent training provider, a big employment services provider, in probation, the CRC, whatever it is, we're all here to help people become more employable. We're here, and some of us are lucky enough to sort of do that life-changing thing on a day-to-day basis, which is great. But as a society, we've got some big challenges ahead, and as a sector, face some big challenges nationally and here, particularly as a region. I may touch more on those in a moment as well. But that's why the best solutions, in my experience, the best services, best provision for our customers and businesses is when we come together and form those effective partnerships. New ideas are formed, new ways of working, and we do things better together. And so this is why I could stand all day talking about these IEP events, but I am a big believer in them, facilitating those connections. So please make the most of the opportunity today, and reach out to people you may not have met before, strengthen relationships that you already know, but do reach out and let's see where those conversations take us. It all starts with a conversation. Lost my train of thought there, but there you go. Thanks. You're ahead of me there, Matt. As if we practiced this. Yeah. So Seetec then, very briefly. Seetec was formed over 30 years ago, and it was set up originally to support unemployed people with IT training and help them find work. It was originally founded as a charity. It's not anymore, but that commitment to social values still absolutely remains front and centre and drives the services and the activity that Seetec continued, and brings us to where we are today. So delivers, as I said, sort of a range of services and provision across the country, here and in Ireland. And I suppose it's really important to me that sort of local services delivered nationally. So whilst there is a national footprint, ethos is very much about delivering effective local services. And I say across that sort of broad spectrum of employability, be it skills, apprenticeships, health, rehabilitation, justice, probation. And employability is really therefore at the core of what Seetec does. It's about creating opportunities, improving lives and communities. And again, thanks. I think we could probably skip over that slide. So taking a sort of another layer away, just to have a look at some of the services that Seetec provide. And again, some of these, you'll be very familiar with. I think this is an interesting one we made with Hope, is an employability program inside prisons that we do. And in terms of sort of the health, mental health, that's something that Seetec's very passionate about, sort of living its values, and so delivers that internally to all its staff. Health and well-being is core to how it does its how it undertakes its internal business, as well as delivering those sort of services externally. Probably any questions on all of this, I'm conscious of time, please do come and find me as well afterwards to talk in more detail. Again, always a good opportunity to talk about some of the successes and accreditations. I won't list all of those, but Ofsted Grade 2 provide across all the provisions, IEP in gold, again with that focus on health and well-being. Yeah, I think it's, do you want to skip on again? Thanks. I suppose it's probably worth me just touching on our sort of approach, Seetec's approach in terms of its principles, operating principles, and how it looks to build its services and deliver its provision. Very much about collaboration and working effective partnerships, particularly to deliver effective local services. Very keen to make sure that the data that's collected is open and shared as widely as possible, notwithstanding we know challenges around sharing data, but there you go, that's certainly a principle, and that in terms of impact, that evidence is collected and then shared, and that feeds in to our continuous improvement principle down the bottom here, of course, making sure that we get the right interventions that we're building, not just post provision or service when contracts, practical services come to an end, but in live running too, to make sure that we're always being the best we can be. An asset and place-based approach is obviously very much driving that sort of that effective local services bit, about building on the strengths of the communities and delivery that resides already in local areas. In terms of behaviour change, I think this feeds into some of these over here. That's about looking at driving that behaviour change within participants on our programmes and employers too. We're pushing that sort of self-efficacy, let's say, agenda, and making sure that we get the right intervention, and that with people become more independent, there's less then strain on other resources, which feeds into in terms of work first. I know we might touch on some of that later in some of our presentations. But yeah, there's a flavour there again. Of course, come and talk to me about any of these things. I'm sure you're familiar with them all yourselves. Okay, so lastly, I wanted to bring it back around, I suppose, back to this partnership point that I keep banging on about, but why I think it's so important, because, you know, we get to work in this great sector, and actually in this sort of employability, we get to tackle some of society's sort of, you know, biggest problems, I suppose, and do it often from the ground up. And sometimes those partnerships are made easier or harder depending on commissioners and how they structure things. But, you know, as I said, I think if we can come together, we have the best opportunity of meeting some of these challenges head on. Because, you know, we do some great stuff. I'm going to hear about some great stuff today, but I think the challenges you'll recognise still remain. Again, you know, we all know about sort of the ageing workforce. I think the digital revolution, that's an interesting one. I wish I'd remembered these stats, but that would have required me doing a bit more practice. So this is why I'm holding these, because I did want to share some of these with you, because I think they are actually they really do sort of set that scene. But I think in terms of that digital revolution, you know, the estimates anywhere up to 30 to 35% of our jobs are at high risk of being automated. Now, in some ways, there's a positive there that it might look to increase productivity. It all depends what you're measuring, of course. But some of the participants we work in, the sectors in which we work, there's going to be a real change coming in the next 10 to 20 years. So it'll be interesting, and I think we're going to be at the front of supporting the region and individuals to meet that challenge. High level skills gap, and you know, this is particularly important for some of our providers in here today. But only 50.7% of SCR residents have a level 3 and above. The national average is over 57%. So you can see that high level skills gap is there. And I know if Chris, you and others from LEP and yourself, Rob, you'll be well aware of these stats, and, you know, correct me if I've got any of these wrong. But again, you know, we know we've got a productivity issue as well, and again, that's linked to some of that high skills gap. You know, and I think we're Sheffield City region are probably at the bottom of the devolved areas as well for productivity. Be careful what I say. Not quite, okay. Yeah. Still a challenge though, yeah. Be careful what I say there. Yeah, okay. And you know, and I think in terms of that employability piece, you know, whilst I think that focus is shifting now, and you know, we know that whilst we might have the lowest unemployment rates nationally, as this region, we're still above those figures, and particularly, you know, for females. 26% more people claiming benefits in the region than compared to the national figures. And, you know, okay, so more people are in work, but we know that we've got a problem with poverty and earnings in work. These are Joseph Rowntree figures, but 40 million people in poverty, 1 in 8 workers living below the poverty line. I mean, that's just an astonishing figure. But again, these are some of the challenges and some of the things that we together will look to tackle. I'm conscious of time, so I've got stats for all of these, but I won't bore you with any more stats. I think it's just to say that, you know, we collaboration is key, and that working together in partnership across the sector will enable us to meet these challenges head on.